If you have been in a PopCross Studios comment section at any point in the last year, there is a very good chance that you have seen this comment right here. And that's because Finley Ballinger has been asking on every single video, post, and story for the last year to do Christmas movie characters as Power Rangers. Now, commenting something a million times is zero guarantee that it's going to get made into a video, because an idea has to fit into three important categories. One, it has to be something that I genuinely consider an interesting or fun idea. Two, it has to be something that I think I can make into a video that will be entertaining and or inspiring to a large portion of my audience. And three, it has to be something that I think I'll have fun making. Christmas movie Power Rangers has always fit into those categories, but it also is kind of a topical video. It's something I'd only really make in the first few weeks before Christmas. But luckily, Finley kept up commenting it all the way until the point where it was finally relevant to make again. In terms of the writing, I've written this a little bit more like a fusion of Christmas movie stories and Power Rangers, more so than putting Christmas movie characters into the Power Rangers universe. But I think if you're looking for Christmassy Rangers stuff, you're gonna enjoy what's going on in this video. So I hope you all enjoy, and congratulations to Finley, because it's finally happening. Let's go! Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. With 1 week until Christmas, the last thing Zordon Claus needed was a new team of inexperienced Power Rangers showing up at his workshop. The Rangers had once been the protectors of Earth, using incredible technology from their home world to keep this more primitive planet safe from any who may threaten it. But after their last battle, in which they'd trapped Earth's greatest threat, Krampulsa, in a frozen pyramid in the South Pole, there had been no such threats. Eventually, those still remaining on Claus's own team had moved on to lead mortal lives, giving up their power weapons and, in turn, their ranger abilities. Claus, however, had deemed it necessary to keep his powers as the Red Ranger, to keep watch over Earth, just in case any new threats arose. But, in the meantime, he needed something to do with his abilities, his mighty Zord deer, a troop of massive transforming robot vehicles, and, of course, his loyal assistant, Alpha 5. Together, they'd set up a base of operations in the isolated North Pole, and after making hundreds of copies of Alpha 5 to assist them, they began making toys to once a year give to all the good children of the world on Christmas. If there was nothing significant to protect the Earth from, Zordon thought he could at least provide some annual joy. Years and years went on, with him becoming more known as a holiday icon than a world-protecting hero. But all at once, out of nowhere, he'd be thrust back into his role as the first unexpected Ranger showed up in his home. When Claus saw a Blue Ranger soaring down towards the balcony of his office, he knew it couldn't be his old ally. The original Blue Ranger had died in a battle long before, with his Frost Lance having been lost in the conflict. So, when this new Ranger appeared, Claus quickly requested to know who he was and how he'd acquired the lance. The boy revealed that his name was Jack, and that he'd fallen through the ice of a frozen river while trying to save his sister's life. Jack couldn't swim and sank to the lake's bottom, but before falling unconscious, he saw a slightly glimmering blue light in the muck beneath him. It was indeed the lance, and as he curiously grabbed it, the suit of ranger armor he now wore encompassed him, warming him, making him able to breathe, and allowing him to rocket up out of the water with ease. After bringing his sister home safely and testing out his newly acquired abilities, such as super strength, speed, flight, the power to create and control ice and snow, he then noticed that in his heads-up display there was a beacon guiding him to the North Pole. As soon as he focused on it, his suit flung him up into the air and sent him soaring towards the location. Claus was skeptical of this selection. He knew the Frost Lance would not allow its abilities to be imbued into a person who was unworthy, but a teenager being given the powers of his fallen comrade seemed strange. But that was far from the strangest thing that would occur that day, as soon enough another new young ranger would appear at Claus's base. More coincidentally still, another boy named Jack. While still speaking with the new Blue Ranger and trying to determine what to do with him, Zordon Claus got an urgent message from one of the many Alpha 5s. It said that there was a man in a striped Black Ranger outfit running around the facility, asking, "What's this? What's this?" to everything he saw. Claus and the Blue Ranger both went down to meet him. He was far from what Claus would have expected. He was 6.5 feet tall and near dangerously thin, but all the same, he wielded the hollow axe of Claus's former ally. This was stranger still than the frost lance being found, however. While the lance had been lost out in the world, the previous Black Ranger had willingly hung up his weapon, and as far as Claus knew it, the weapon should have still been locked away in his vault. He demanded to know how this boy could have gotten it. The irrepressibly plucky boy introduced himself as Jack Skellington, and he claimed he found the axe out in the woods near his home. It seemed to have called to him, and as soon as he grabbed it, his suit appeared on him, and a glowing portal had opened in a hollow tree nearby. He stepped through it, and here he was, fascinated by everything he saw in Claus's workshop, as his small, isolated hometown didn't celebrate Christmas. That made this selection somewhat fitting, Claus admitted. The prior Black Ranger had never found Claus's pitch for his own annual tradition very compelling, and had actually started his own, more eerie holiday in October, prior to hanging up his hollow axe for good. Still, this day was truly bizarre. 2 new Rangers appearing in one day could not be a coincidence. Claus went to his vault and saw it was completely empty of the other Ranger weapons as well. That made it all the more easy to anticipate that he'd have more guests coming soon, but also that something more serious was likely wrong. The power weapons had an inherent danger sense that even Zordon didn't fully understand. If they were out seeking new wielders, then some new threat had to be on the horizon. But Claus knew little more than that. Over the next day, more Rangers showed up. A reluctant Yellow Ranger named John McClane, who'd tried so hard to remove his suit once it spawned onto him that he'd already lost its shoes, then a Pink Ranger named Cindy Lou, who came from a town that was completely obsessed with Christmas, so she was over the moon to be at Claus's facility. Then, finally, a Green Ranger named Ethan Grinch, who actually lived on the outskirts of Cindy Lou's town. She knew him as a guy who would egg any houses too done up with Christmas stuff every December. Claus didn't know how to handle this situation. Christmas was 1 week away, his busiest time of year, and now he was meant to train a whole new team of Rangers? He just hoped whatever threat was coming, that the weapons may have sensed, could arrive after the holidays. Zordon handed the Rangers over to the original Alpha 5 to start their training as he got back to Christmas preparations, though keeping his senses primed for any threat that may pop up. What he didn't expect, however, was that the threat was already within his well-decked halls. The last great threat Claus and his team had faced in their heyday was Krampulsa. She was a mighty sorceress from outer space who wanted to harness the power of children's nightmares to fuel her magic and make her the most powerful force on Earth. Something Claus had never been aware of back when he and his original team defeated her, however, was that in their final quarrel, along with killing the original Green Ranger, Buddy, Krampulsa had cursed his weapon, making it into what she called the Humbug Dagger. Instead of going to a worthy protector the next time it was awakened, it would instead seek out a soul who would be easily swayed by its darkness to bring down the Rangers. Whoever wielded it would also have their mind linked to hers, so she could further coerce them into more dastardly deeds. She certainly hadn't expected it to take centuries for it to find a new host, but that was the amount of time Earth had stayed safe from world-threatening forces. And in fact, she would be the very being to spur the weapons into seeking new wielders. A pair of Antarctic explorers found her frozen pyramid in our modern day and carefully thawed her out, expecting to study a preserved but deceased body, certainly not expecting her to awaken and kill them both. Her awakening set the weapons seeking their new hosts, and through the eyes of the new Green Ranger, Krampulsa could see everything happening at the North Pole. She learned of the holiday Claus had made in her absence and decided her ultimate revenge would come by thwarting his Christmas plans. She'd have her green traitorous ally kill the other Rangers, then make Claus watch as she used all his precious technology to complete her own mission of giving all the children of the world perpetual nightmares to fuel her dark magic. All these desires came right through to the mind of Ethan Grinch as he trained alongside the other Rangers. For the first 6 days, he was completely on board with her plans, pretending to be nice to the other Rangers, but believing any kindness he received in return was simply due to them never seeing his face behind his Ranger mask. You see, Grinch had been born with a facial deformity, and in response to his appearance, his parents had given him up. He was adopted by his loving mothers, who had a serious passion for Christmas, but they died while he was quite young, on Christmas Eve, spurring some initial disdain for the holiday season. A few years later, for a Christmas event at school, he'd made a beautiful angel ornament for a girl he liked in his class, asking if she'd go out with him as he gave it to her. To his horror, she just laughed in his face, and when all the other kids heard what had happened, they'd all done the same. He dropped out of school soon after, took odd jobs here and there, and every Christmas would lash out, smashing lawn ornaments and tearing down trees in the town square, having multiple run-ins with the law as a result. Wielding Krampulsa's weapon had just further fueled his anger, and he was well ready on Christmas Eve to enact their plan, already on the move to kill the first of the Rangers. Until he had an unexpected one-on-one encounter with Cindy Lou. She'd noticed that he hadn't taken off his Ranger helmet in any of their time together as a group that week, and told him that he should, that the group would accept him as he was. She said that she was sorry she hadn't known him while he was still in school. She was a few years behind him, but had heard what had happened, and promised that she certainly would not have laughed at him. People in their town had since started calling him a heartless troublemaker, but she said she knew that wasn't true. Cindy said that people with the biggest hearts can often have them broken the hardest. It was a touching thing to hear, but he still didn't believe her, so he tore off his helmet and pushed his face right in towards her, giving a menacing snarl. But she just smiled and gave him a quick kiss on the forehead before continuing off down the halls. That stopped him in his tracks. She was being sincere. He'd spent so long thinking nobody would accept him as he was, but right there, he saw the proof. Unfortunately, Krampulsa had also seen it as well, and felt she was losing control of him. She yelled into his mind, telling him to go kill the Rangers in preparation for her arrival, but he didn't listen. Instead, he gathered Zordon Claus and the group and told them Krampulsa was coming. Ethan half expected the other Rangers and Claus to take his weapons and toss him out, or even lock him away as he admitted to having been scheming with Krampulsa. But as he completed his confession, he was met with gratitude. Claus told him that overcoming Krampulsa's magic was no simple feat, and he was glad Ethan had told them. Of course, it would have been better to learn all this sooner, as Krampulsa would be there within the hour, ready to destroy everything Claus had built. The last time they'd fought, Claus and his team had barely been able to beat her, and they'd all been well-trained and seasoned Rangers. It would be no easy task for this new team to best her, but they had to try. They hadn't even had an opportunity to train in their Zord gear, so Claus hoped they could keep this to a mech-free fight, though he knew that to be unlikely. The Rangers were all outside and waiting as a small army of Krampulsa's minions, her Kramputties, swarmed towards them through the frosty terrain. Claus was right there on the front line with them, and charged in along with his new team, anxious about whether or not they were truly ready. To his great surprise, though, they fought incredibly well. The new Blue Ranger, despite having been skeptical himself about whether or not he deserved to be on the team, instinctively flew up ahead of the group to lure the eyes of the Kramputties away from the others. He rained down icy daggers on them, but kept his flurry away from his allies. Cindy Lou and Grinch were fighting side by side, with Grinch keeping a very close eye on any Kramputties getting too close to Cindy Lou. As they tore through foes, Claus was quickly starting to gain a feeling he hadn't felt for some time, the camaraderie of once more being part of a team of unified Rangers. But he also knew Kramputties were likely not the only thing Krampulsa had up her sleeve for them that night. When they were nearly through the last of them, Claus heard Krampulsa's cackling in the distance. "I hope my Kramputties didn't soften you up too much. I want at least a little bit of a fight out of you myself." She slammed her staff into the ground and yelled, "Magic wand, make me grow!" Green lightning sparked around her, and just as she demanded, her body grew and grew until she was over 30 stories tall. Claus knew they had no other choice now. Even though they hadn't trained for it, they had to call in the Zord Deer. He instructed the Rangers on how to call in their Zords, but told Grinch he had a special command. While the other Rangers all had connections to specific Zord Deer, the Green Ranger had his own unique ally. Claus leapt into his Zord, Rudolph, as he told Grinch to turn his green dagger and play it like a flute. The other Rangers all charged off in their Zords as Grinch tried the notes, but only succeeded in playing garbled noise. He kept trying and trying, frustrated as his allies soared through the air around the giant Krampulsa, getting smacked and battered by her giant staff and streaks of green lightning. He kept trying and trying, not knowing what he was doing wrong, but it suddenly came to him as he saw Krampulsa reel back her massive staff and strike Cindy Lou's Zord Deer from the air. His protective instincts overtook him, and he was possessed with a knowing that allowed him to play the perfect notes. Bursting forth from the icy ground beneath Claus's workshop, suddenly sprung forth the abominable Snow Zord. Grinch leapt into it and stomped into battle, immediately hammering a fist into Krampulsa's stomach. She hurled back into the snow. The others all cheered him on as Grinch ran up and snatched her staff away from her. He smashed it over the knee of his Zord, and Krampulsa cried out in fury. Her magic faded, and she shrunk back down to her regular size. From there, it was easy for them to apprehend her. Claus entrusted the Rangers to keep watch on her as he quickly loaded up his Zord Deer and shot off into the Christmas night to deliver gifts to all the good children, reinvigorated with a further sense of purpose, once more being part of a team of able Rangers. The following morning, the entire group celebrated, and while they all did still have their differences, they did truly accept one another, and would be ready to fight side by side once more if any more threats did come for their world. I'm not gonna lie, I do think it's very funny that I just did a Christmas Power Rangers episode and did not do a Red Ranger. I just like my other design ideas better. If you're new to the channel and you want more Power Rangers stuff, I do have an older famous video game characters as Power Rangers episode. It's okay looking back on it, but I think a better video to watch if you enjoyed this would probably be my recent Pokemon as Superheroes reboot, which is going to be getting another video soon. But the next one on this channel is going to be my annual dumb Christmas episode, though slightly different from the last few years because I am taking a bunch of different people's ideas. And the video will be narrated by two of the channel favorites, good old Benny Siap and Dr. Champagne McGregor. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note, and considering the way that Jason David Frank, the original Green Ranger actor, died recently, I'm gonna use a quote that honestly I've wanted to use before, but I feel like it's easy for it to come across as a bit disingenuine or maybe even too cheesy for some people. But I know when I first heard it in a motivational speech, it hit me like a train. So today's ending note is that we need you here. Whoever you are listening, there is something that this world will miss out on if you left it before your time was up. You have not yet met all the people who are going to love you in this life, and you have not yet made the whole positive impact that your soul is here to make. I really hope everyone out there hears that and really feels it because it's so true. I hope it's inspiring to someone out there. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. And congrats again to Finley Ballinger. You did it.